What's up, Schmoedown fans? Welcome back to the final episode of Beyond the Schmoedown. I'm Star Wars champion Andrew Dimalanta.
I'm Nicki Dimalanta.
Just giving up on it?
Yep. Absolutely.
So, again, thank you everyone for joining us on this episode, which is the goodbye episode for Beyond the Schmoedown, the final episode of this show.
Yeah.
In particular.
Of a Schmoedown centric show.
Schmoedown centric show, that's what we're saying. And like, you know, we really don't have like a huge topic for this one.
Yeah, I don't really know where to begin.
Yeah, it really is just like we're gonna get to like, because we wanted to like divulge our notes and like study tactics and how we went about prepping for matches and stuff like that, but we wanted to do it in the Star Wars episode, but we already like
it would have been a whole nother hour.
It would have been a 3-hour episode, so we'll do that here, but really like, and like we don't want to do be like repeating ourselves and like, oh, thank you so much for the show, because we already did that in Spectacular.
Yeah,
and
at least they saw that. They probably won't be watching this.
So, and I don't want to like drone on about like, oh, well, where do we think it went wrong, and why do we think the show got canceled, or why the show ended? And it's like, no, I don't want to get into that.
It's not a constructive use of anybody's time. I think that the Schmoedown subreddit beat that dead horse to hell. So it's not really a good use of anybody's time.
Yeah, and I don't want to point fingers at people. It's
exactly.
like, oh, it's this person's fault, or it's that person. It's like, it is probably a mess of things. Like,
there was a lot more things that we probably knew about.
Yeah, there's a lot of like stuff that was like just poor timing. You know, the pandemic definitely didn't hurt or didn't help. So
I'd love to see an alternate reality of the Schmoedown where a pandemic didn't happen. You know, because you do wonder. That was a huge monkey wrench. But you know,
not just for the show, for everybody,
the world. Unless you figure out how to hop into an alternate reality, there's really no point in, you know,
multiverse
droning on about it. You know, of course, some things could have happened differently, but it is what it is. It's happened and it's done, unfortunately. And who knows, maybe at some point in the future, maybe Christian, or if not Christian and Mark, maybe somebody will revive it in some way. Who knows?
Yeah. I think if it does, but that's the thing we can think of, like, if it does get revived, one, would you take part in it?
I wouldn't compete.
Me neither. I would help.
I would love to write questions.
Yeah.
I wish I had the opportunity to write questions.
Two, would it be the same?
No.
I don't think it would be.
I don't think so.
There was such, I think, this is something I do want to like talk about. It's like, I think that it was like catching lightning in a bottle. Everything was just perfectly timed when it hit its height.
Yeah.
Like, I think it really hit its height in like season 4 and 5. Season 6, it was still there, but then 8, it started to, you know, I think 8 was when it really changed.
Which one was the digital season?
8. Season 8 was last season was digital. I think that's when things started to change, and like, but like really, it like, you can't capture that magic again.
Yeah, I think it would definitely be different, especially if somebody else took over it that wasn't Christian and Mark.
Yeah, because I think somebody else picked up the pieces and said like, hey, Schmoedown's back. And you had different faces involved. And,
and also, did they ever like trademark Schmoedown? Like, could somebody else pick it up without their permission?
I think
probably not.
Probably.
I feel like there's some kind of red tape.
I don't know who owns the IP of Schmoedown. I imagine Mark and Christian own that like brand, because they're still putting content out underneath the Schmoedown umbrella with the Archive channel. So I imagine they have the rights to the name.
I imagine.
So
I don't know how all that has been legally ironed out.
But I just think everything that involved, especially those seasons, it was just such a niche thing that appealed to a lot of people. Yeah. And like, you can't recreate that magic without, because like, I know like people might have like their grasp of how Christian did a couple of things, but you got to give the guy credit. He was able to piece together a certain like things. And I do like the I think season that what the faction race came in. I think that changed.
7?
I think it was 7, because I came in
before the pandemic.
Yeah, I came in season 6, and there was no faction race. But then in the faction race, because when I got the draft to the exchange, that's when it really like felt different. Like, it was an actual competition.
Really cool.
It felt really good. I guess I remember when the faction race was first introduced, and that match with Merle versus Shazam, basically that triple threat. Yeah, I remember because I was on the faction with Dan. I was like, oh, I really want Dan to win, and when he won, I was like, hell yeah, points for our faction. It was so different feeling.
It was absolutely electric. Like, that was a really, really fun, magical season, I think. I know there were some people at the faction race wasn't for them, but that goes with any form of entertainment. You're never going to make everybody happy. There's always going to be some people that are like, I don't like this. Other people that do.
Yeah.
And if you would have gone in a different direction, then the people that liked it before are not going to like it now. And, so you're never going to make everybody happy. But I do think that was a really nice twist on it.
Yeah. And I think that season had encapsulated like a really great balance between all aspects of the show with competition, trivia. The trivia wasn't insanely hard, but it started to turn in a way where not everybody can do it. And that's the thing. That was one of the gripes I had about people complaining. It's like, well, I can't play along. It's like, well,
if you could play along and keep up, then you should be in here with us.
Yeah.
Like it's supposed to be like the hardest trivia competition in the world.
And it was.
And it's like, I understand because I know that I think PJ and PLD would even agree that, we wanted to make the show accessible to people because if everything is a 5-10 pointer, then no one's going to be interested.
Yeah.
But there is a fine balance that I think they tried to toe that line all the time because, you shouldn't be getting perfect round ones with Dan Merle and Sam Levine every single time. If you were, then you should be fucking competing.
Yeah.
So it was a fine line to have to play like, how do we make it accessible, but how do we also still make it challenging?
Yeah, and I think that's why that season was so special because it did have that nice line that they were towing because I think that season was the season where a lot of competitors were having perfect round ones. Like before that, like you maybe see 2 or 3 perfect round ones in the season. In that season, you saw like almost every week. It's like, oh, wow, perfect round 1. But then you get into the second round, and that's when people started slipping up.
Yeah.
So I think that was a really great balance of like what I was saying, trivia. The trivia wasn't extremely hard, but there were some cases where a 5-pointer just like fucked up a competitor.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? What the hell is that? Nobody knew the question. But then also like you had some storylines here and there. You had the thrill, the competition aspect of like points actually matter, wins actually matter towards something.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting. That was an interesting, really, really important pivotal season. I think the introduction to the faction race, and the introduction to the faction race happened with blissful ignorance to knowing what was going to happen next year with the pandemic.
Yeah.
So like I said, I wish I could have known what would have happened had the pandemic not hit because season 7, the season of the faction race, first season. Well, the first and only season of the faction race.
No, season 6.
No, because
season
8
7,
was digital.
Yeah, 7, yeah.
So if 7 was that year, that was a really, really pivotal year because prior to that, it's actually more if you look at it in hindsight. Because like when it was happening, when season 7 happened, the faction race was introduced. Oh my God, you get points for your faction. Oh my God, if you get knocked out, you get minus points. Yeah. If you get a knockout, you get extra points. It was so exciting and new. It felt so fresh. It felt so alive. Yeah. And like I said, you're not going to make everybody happy, but I do think, I'd like to hazard a guess that the majority of fans were into it. It was cool. You could rep your faction. You could have their t-shirt. You could get a coffee mug with their logo on it. Yeah. It was exciting and new. I really think it revived a lot of, not even revived because it wasn't like it was.
It like heightened your experience.
It heightened it. It elevated it. That's heightened and elevated is a good way to put it. But in hindsight, it's interesting because in the moment, I think it excited a lot of people and it made it feel so new and exciting and different. But then you hit the digital era. And you kind of have to pivot away from storylines. You kind of have to pivot away from that kind of aspect of it and lean a bit heavier into the competition side of it because you're just sitting in front of a camera and at home in your PJ pants. Yeah. So you kind of have to lean into a different aspect of it to keep people invested, you know? And I feel like season 7 and 8, 7 because it was a matter of, well, we want to win. Yeah. I got to get points for my team. So I got to really get out there and perform. And then season 8 leaning heavier into the competition because you can't really lean into the drama of it. 7 and 8 were the 2 seasons where it was like, you probably need to study. Yeah. Depending on what kind of tier of player people consider you to be and what type of specialty you might have. I think it really made people lean into having to study and prepare. And then it's interesting that those 2 seasons that in the moment were so exciting, in hindsight, when people started bitching on social media about everything about the Schmoedown, they started talking about, I miss the days when it was just friends getting together and having fun and asking questions about, and I miss people missing questions. And it's interesting to see like the discussions take form once it's all said and done. Because like in the moment, season 7 and 8 were so exciting.
Yeah.
But they absolutely changed the game.
Yeah.
It changed the game from friends getting together. Hey, who directed The Birds?
Yeah.
The Birds.
Bergs.
No, Alfred Hitchcock.
Oh, Birds.
Right? Oh,
yeah.
Burbs.
Birds.
You know, R.I.P. to Dan Merle's questions about that.
Yeah.
He got it though. Yeah. It became more of like cutthroat competition.
Yeah.
I want to do well. You started leaning there. You didn't really see as many outlandish characters. Like you didn't see as many Makugas.
Yeah.
No shade to him because we loved to see Makuga out there. Everybody.
Yeah.
Some people it wasn't for them. But I just find it interesting the conversations that happen once the dust is settled.
Yeah.
You know, I just find it interesting because
Yeah.
I feel like in the moment it was so new and exciting. And then once it was all done, it was like, oh, but now everybody studies and it's not fun anymore.
What did you prefer? Because I'm on record saying like 7 and 8 are probably my 2 favorite seasons because it was so competition heavy.
I agree.
Yeah. And I think that's what, and I think like, you know, when the season 9 came out, it's like, it didn't feel the same because we're coming off 2 seasons that were so like, you need to win.
Yeah.
Like winning is really why we all do this anyways.
Yeah.
And I think what those 2 seasons spoke to me was like sports. Why is the NFL like billions and billions of dollars every year in revenue? People love competition.
Yeah.
They love to see people compete and we love to see people win. We love to see these big, amazing comeback stories.
And a team or a player that I can root for.
Hey, you can get behind
and
a team.
And there's stakes behind it.
Yeah. And I think that's what really spoke to me about those 2 seasons. It's like, it felt like a legit sport.
Yeah.
And a legit sport that I can compete in and I can I can win in.
Yeah.
And it's like, I couldn't say that for a lot of the stuff that I participated in high school. I mean, I ran cross country. I was like the 7th player on our varsity team. Because there were 7 varsity spots. I was always number 7. I was constantly, week after week, I'd be bumped down to JV.
On track and field?
On cross country.
Cross country?
Cross country, we had top 7 runners would be considered varsity.
Yeah.
And that bottom spot always got flipped. Huh. And I was always 7 and 8. Every week I was always switching because somebody would outrun me.
Bitches.
Yeah. And then Taekwondo, you know.
Give me their names. I'm going to beat them down.
Yeah, Taekwondo, I was never really good at sparring because I was such a small kid and small guy.
You're fast though.
I was fast, but like I couldn't compete because I would always get bumped up 5 weight classes because there's nobody in my weight class.
Yeah.
So, but then when this thing comes around, it's like, hey, you're competing in trivia.
Oh, okay. Wait a minute, but don't sell yourself short in Taekwondo. There was demonstrations.
Oh yeah, there was demonstrations. That was
shit.
That was my shit. But like,
you know, you can find a video of Andrew doing Taekwondo demonstrations. Oh boy, it sucks. They're all in like, you know, potato quality with like 3 pixels total.
But that wasn't really like competition. You know what I mean? It was me performing. That speaks to my performance side of. It
was still competition, but I get it.
Yeah. But like, then movie Trivia Schmoedown comes along, and then they debut a Star Wars division. It's like I didn't watch.
Wait a minute.
It's like wait a minute. This is something that I know I've been watching my entire life, and a lot of these questions I don't get wrong.
Right.
I maybe when I was first watching when like, you know, I got debuted, it's like I maybe missed one question.
Yeah.
Why am I not competing in this?
And how crazy is it that out of 3 divisions that are very broad in their own ways, the one franchise targeted division is Star Wars?
Yeah.
What are the fucking chances?
Yeah, and that's what got me excited. Like I can actually compete in something and be really good at it.
Yeah, and I can put all of this all of this information in my head to use.
Yeah, and that's like that small little magic bubble that I was like, God. And on top of all that, the people that are running it are guys that I've been fans of for years.
Yeah,
and it's like I've told the story before when I debuted in Chicago. We went out for pizza afterwards, and I'm like,
yeah, it was good.
What am I doing with my life right now? I have Dagnino to my right. I have Christian Harloff to my left.
Got Jay Washington like driving us there.
Yeah.
Like, come on, guys, you're part of the family now.
I was like, what is going on? Like that day, like they didn't air it in a Spectacular because I remember they asked me what my favorite match was to compete in, and a lot of people would have thought, yeah, it's 51-50. You won the belt off Alex. It's a record-breaking match.
Of course.
No, my favorite match was my debut match because it was such a magical experience, like both outside and inside the match. It's like I'm answering Star Wars questions at Star Wars Celebration.
Yeah.
And like I have Molly Damon she was on my right side or my left side? I think
she was to your left.
My left. It's like
and
Molly Damon is sitting next to me.
Joseph Scrimshaw's were on the other side.
And like these are people that I've been fans of for like I've been following Alex for years before I stepped foot in a Schmoedown match.
Yeah.
And like, I remember walking on the floor at Celebration. And I'm like, oh, it's Alex Damon. And like, I didn't say hi to him. He actually made eye contact with me and he goes, Andrew Dimalanta. I'm like, yeah. Alex Damon knows who I am. What the hell is going on?
And now you guys text each other Scrubs jokes.
Yeah, it's just this weird thing of like looking like now when we look back on it or like we look at like who we're friends with, it's like, oh yeah, it's Alex Damon.
It's crazy to think of the connections we've been able to make with this show.
Yeah, like all these people that I've been fans of for years, I've been following, and I respected that they're in like the space. It's like I've never thought in a million years that Alex Damon, Christian Harloff, Mark Ellis would be like texting me.
Yeah.
Like, hey man, how you doing? Or like, hey, I'm thinking of buying this one thing for Star Wars. Like Chris Harloff was wondering where to buy a poster.
Yeah. One time he called us like talking about shows that were about to come out. Yeah. We're like, what?
Like, why are you calling me?
Oh, right. Because Star Wars.
Yeah, that's because Star Wars. Yeah. But like, it was just this magic thing that I'm glad we were able to be a part of. And like, I'm glad we got into it when we did, because if we would have gotten into it maybe 2 years later, different experience.
Much different. Yeah.
So I'm glad that we were able to get into the Schmoedown when we did.
Yeah.
Not just being in like competing in it, but also like watching it, because I remember your first experience with it. It's like, what are you watching? Like every person that we've always like described the Schmoedown to me, they're like,
oh, that's right. I did say something about that in my interview and they didn't air it.
Yeah.
Well, not because anything bad happened, but because they need to make good time.
Yeah.
But like, they asked me what I think my earliest Schmoedown memory was, or what my first match was. And like I said, I don't remember exactly what match it was. I just remember that it was, I don't know if it's okay to say this, but Robert Meyer Burnett.
Yeah.
It was a Robert Meyer Burnett versus I don't remember who. I just remember you watching it, and I walked into the room, and Robert Meyer Burnett is in the post-match interview, and he's in that like loud ass jacket of his, and he's like yelling he's like grabbing the microphone, like yelling into the camera, and I'm like, what the hell are you watching? Like, weren't they just answering movie questions 5 minutes ago? Why is he yelling? Why is he so mad? And like, it just kind of caught my eye, and I was like, what? I don't know what the hell I'm watching, but I kind of want to see more. Like, I want to see what he's yelling about and what got him from, yes, Steven Spielberg, to like screaming into the microphone at the end of the match. So, yeah.
Navarro!
Did they play each other?
I think, Navarro took the belt off of him.
For all I know, maybe it was that. I don't know. I just remember that it definitely involved Robert Meyer Burnett and his loud ass, looks like it's inside out jacket. But yeah, that was like my earliest memory was, I wish I remember which match it was. But I'm glad we got into it when we did. And I'm glad that all the matches are still there.
Yeah.
I know some people have been trying to look up the matches.
They'll be there.
I think they're airing them on the Archives channel.
Mm-hmm.
Don't ask me why they're doing what they're doing with moving channels. I don't care, but like they're re-airing. I think they're starting with season 1, and I'm assuming they're going in chronological order.
Yeah, I think
through the seasons.
I think we just finished. Like we picked when it came up on our feed. Like, oh, let's watch this. It was the Makuga knapsack match.
But there was another one with like Christian versus somebody. I forget who it was. But they're like incrementally. That Ottoman's missing still.
Yeah,
they're like incrementally uploading them so like you can relive the magic, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So they'll be there. It's just you gotta wait a little bit.
Yeah, you do. But it's crazy how we started.
Yeah.
I say it was you, but also I was there in the background. But like, it's just crazy to see like personally the progression from like match 1 to last match. It's crazy because like your first match, your 5-pointer was what kind of creature in The Last Jedi has the green milk that Luke grossly drinks in the last Jedi. And at the time,
that's a respectable 5-pointer now. I mean,
I think it's more of a 3-pointer now.
Yeah. But still, it's a respectable question at least.
Yeah. Absolutely. But I just look back at the fact that in that match, we missed a question about, again, I say we.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like we.
Yeah, it is.
Round 1, we missed a question about Cloud Riders.
Yeah.
It's like, how in the hell did we miss that?
Yeah. 12th Moody out. I have no idea how I missed 12th Moody out.
Well, it's just crazy because like, that's why I always laughed whenever when you were about to face Laura for the second time for the belt, people were like, well, Laura beat him already. She beat him the first time. It's like, do you realize how different a competitor Andrew is from his first season.
Yeah.
And that could be said for a lot of competitors. When you first start, a lot of competitors that study, you know, if you're a competitor that just goes out there, flies by the seat of their pants and just has fun all the time, doesn't really study, different story. But if you're out there and you're actually like got notes and a system for studying, I'm going to wager that your debut match is going to be a different you than your last match. And I think that very much rings true for you.
Oh, yeah. We pivoted a lot. And like, I remember when we first started, I remember we talked about this on the, when we recapped our match at Spectacular, like we had rules.
Yeah.
The number one rule was the main character rule, was if a main character interacts with anything, take note of it.
Yeah.
And that got blown out of the water real quick.
Yeah, a bit. I forget exactly what question made us go, shit. But yeah, it definitely happened.
And I think what really broke us was the 8-8 rule. That was when we really pivoted hard.
That's when we went balls to the wall. Like, okay, yeah, we got to change up what we're doing here in our approach.
Yeah.
Which is why I say that the people that came in with me, the rookie class that came in with me, if they would have been in that season, who's to say they would have gotten all the questions right that they're getting, you know, this season and the very last season.
Yeah.
The only reason that I knew some of the things I knew were because of questions like 8-8, because I got to go, oh, shit.
Oh, shit. They're asking about that?
And guess what? I got the luxury of not having it affect my record because I wasn't in at the time. So, but like...
Yeah, and we didn't do it with just our matches. When we miss a question, like, oh, we got to double down. Like, we would watch every single match and be like, oh, why did they ask that? Oh, shit. Because we would always take notes. Like, they seem to be really diving into homeworlds now. So we went back and like, well, we don't have his homeworld. We don't have that homeworld. Yeah. Let's put that. And then we doubled down on it. And like, because I think we went, they started asking about homeworlds and they're like, we might as well know species. So if we know where they're from, we need to know what their species is. And they're like, well, we already have actors. We might as well add who plays them. And then you got into Schmoedians, fucking Schmoedians. And like, oh, these people played them, this people voice acted them, and then we noticed like, oh, multiple people play, like Kieran Shaw plays like a million different people.
Aiden Cook
was
a lot of creature performers.
Yeah, David Accord does a lot of voices, so it's like when we've started noticing patterns, it's like, all right, we need to go through David Accord and see what every single person he voices and put it in our notes. Aiden Cook plays a lot of different people. We need to put every single one of them in our notes. And I think we did that a lot. Like we would pivot mid-season. Yeah.
Like because any question missed. Well, no, not any question. Any question we missed, yes. Yeah. But then any other match we watched that we were like, oh no, I might have missed that if that was my match. That would make us go, oh wait a minute. I don't really know that 12th Moon of Yout made us pivot. It just made us go, we need to pay a bit more attention. Yeah. To finer details
and fleeting. I think the 12th Moon of Yout rule we ended up calling the Chronos rule. That like the fleeting lines we started paying attention to more. Yeah, because like I remember because it bit me so many times. Like if I was against Alex, if I would have won in Chicago and got up against Alex Danger, I would have missed. But I told the story before. Danger was in my notes for like 5 minutes. Yeah, and then I'm like, he's too deep. I threw him out. Right. And I was like, there's no way they're gonna ask about this guy. And he gets asked, and then 12th Moon of Yout was in my notes for like 2 minutes. I'm like, that's
dumb.
That's dumb. It's too fleeting. Throw it out. Yeah. And then it cost me a match. Yeah. So I think just stuff like that we'd always come up with rules. Yeah. And then I think our last season, the season I won off Alex was like all gloves were off. I don't care. No, it was when was that we were just like nothing's too ridiculous anymore.
It was the digital season. Yeah. Because first of all, this past season was when it ended. Yeah. But yeah, it was absolutely when we started really losing our minds over stuff and like really beating ourselves up was
I think it was
the end of season 7, definitely season 8. Yeah. Because when 8-8 happened at the end of season 7, that's when we were like, how did we miss that? He's got his own shot and he's doing something shitty. Like,
and he's a cult favorite, apparently.
He's apparently a cult favorite. We started, anytime we saw that somebody had a goddamn action figure, thanks to Constable Zuvio and 8-8, we're like, oh, well, if this guy is a fucking action figure, we might want to know about like him.
Every character in
which is basically every side character ever.
In the OT, I think something we noticed, in the OT, you can drive yourself nuts. because they're older movies and like there's more time between competition Schmoedown and the movie itself.
And they've all got like side character backstories.
Yeah.
Like I'm shocked. I feel like Momon Adon is a huge cult favorite. Shocked he never had a question asked about him. Especially with the Ithorians with the tie to Galaxy's Edge.
Yeah.
But 88 was one thing that really blew the doors open for us because we were like, shit, we should have had that. And so one thing that I had done several times, it just, I did it several times. It just always, each time I did it more comprehensively, if that will make any sense. So if you go on, I don't know about you guys, but I looked at, if I'm looking at source material, obviously you got your visual dictionaries, which we never used until maybe the last season. We have maybe
one hard copy of a visual dictionary.
But we never used them.
Yeah.
We only glanced at them this season. At the beginning of this season.
Yeah.
I don't know that it was dumb. It probably could have helped find some things faster.
Yeah.
But obviously the visual dictionaries are a good source. Got to be careful with them though, especially if you're looking at things with deleted scenes. Yeah. Because they definitely kept deleted scene stuff in those books. Yeah. But I always, since we didn't really use those very much, I looked to Wikipedia and the Star Wars databank. Yeah,
those are our two main sources of information.
Heavily.
And I know people are saying, well, Wikipedia is editable by people. It's like the one thing I always give credit to Wikipedia for is sourcing material.
They cite
everything to a T. And we always look, we thought Legends things was off limits, but
no, they asked Legends questions.
But
not a lot, but it happened.
But we would always go this guy, all right, what's the source of his name? And if it's under the canon, it's what's the source? If it was published after a certain date, it's canon. So it's okay, so that came out in 2017. It's obviously under the Disney umbrella. It's canon now.
Well, and on Wikipedia, if a character had Legends and canon material, they separated them into a Legends and canon page. So it wasn't like you had to look at every single source and be like, is this Legends or is it canon? They had a Legends and canon page for each character if they had Legends or canon material for them. So you could flip between both pages. But one thing that I did several times over the course of the past couple of years was that when you look on Wikipedia, if you I would go on to each page for each movie, all 12 movies. And if you scroll all the way to because if every Wikipedia page is very much like a Wikipedia page where you'd have your table of contents at the top and it would give you a rundown of the movie. And then once you get to the end, they would have behind the scenes shit. And then they would have cast and crew credits and all that kind of stuff. And then at the very end of that, at the bottom of the Wikipedia page, they would have a bunch of links for characters, planets, locations, weapons, vehicles, technology type stuff.
It was basically Schmoedown slices. And they had all these different hyperlinks. Weapons, miscellaneous stuff that really didn't fit into a great other category. And so what I would do is I would go to every single movie and I would go to every single link for every single movie. Yeah. And say for A New Hope, I wish I would have counted for some of the movies, but I don't care anymore. But if you go to A New Hope's page and you go to the character listing alone for canon, not Legends. If you go to the canon listing for A New Hope or any of the original trilogy, really, it's actually not exclusive to them. But the character list has rows and rows and columns and columns and columns, probably 3 to 4 columns. No. 2 to 3 columns, 3 to 4 columns, 4 columns at most,
with rows and rows and rows and rows and rows and rows and rows,
characters,
rows and rows and rows. I don't think they were always alphabetical.
Every time I looked at it, they were alphabetical.
I don't know. I'd challenge you.
Alphabetical by first name, at least.
I think you're wrong, but whatever. I'll prove you wrong.
I know there was some order to the chaos.
Okay, but you would go there and there's a shitload of names, and I would go there and I would literally
open tab,
your middle mouse button, when you click it, it opens up in a new tab, and I would just go through it, every single name. Middle mouse, until they opened up, until my computer shit itself from having too many tabs open. And I would go through and I'd be like, yes, that person's important. Yes, that person interacted with the main character. Yes, that person had a thing. That person really didn't fucking do anything. So you know what? And anytime I had a character that I was like, I would ask you and you'd be like, I don't recognize him. Yeah. And at first we threw a lot of people out.
Oh yeah,
a lot of people, a lot
of background characters,
a lot of locations, a lot of weapons, a lot of miscellaneous things. We'd throw them out because we were kind of like,
it doesn't really like. Why would they?
Why would they ask?
One, why would they ask? Two, how would they ask?
Yeah.
So if the person, location, character, or whatever didn't fit those two descriptions, really, we're like, throw it out, because I think the second one is more pertinent too. It's like, how would they ask about this?
Well, that's something that I always thought was funny is I would ask you a question about something. You'd be like, how'd they ask that? I'm like, I just fucking did. That's how they'd ask you. Like, I literally just asked you a question. That's how they'd ask you.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I wish I would have at least counted for one of the movies how many characters there were. But I would go through every single character and I would,
what happened?
I don't care. I just got like a Twitter notification. It's so weird. Like I don't have notifications on for anybody, but every so often I get like hey, this person just tweeted this. I'm like, I don't fucking care. Well, I don't even have their notifications on. But hold on. A new hope. I'm not going to count because it would take too long, but I'm just curious. Oh my God.
Yeah, mobile version of Wikipedia was, I'd always like, I want to look at my character. I would always just like look at the top thing, screenshot it, and then look at it on my laptop later.
I tend to hate mobile versions of everything. Great. I'm just curious. I want to see all of the different categories they had. And the behind the scenes was always a great part of every movie, or even actor or character to find like cute little things. Yeah,
because there was a bunch of stuff like, I think we revealed that like if it was a significant person that played that character, like the daughter or the son of a producer or an actor, or like take note of them, because that's the way they can ask it.
Okay, so I'm looking on. It doesn't really matter for every single movie. They had character. They had at the very bottom. If you go to the table of contents, if you're not on stupid mobile, like if you're on your desktop, if you go to the table of contents at the top and you click appearances, it'll bring you all the way to the bottom of the page. And it'll say appearances by type. And you have to expand it. You have to hit show. There's characters, creatures, droid models, events, locations, organizations and titles, sentient species, vehicles and vessels, weapons and technology, miscellanea. And underneath all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 of those categories, there was a stupid amount of entries under each one of those things. And when I tell you that for all 12 movies, I combed through each of those things under each of those 10 categories multiple times throughout these seasons, it's really stupid.
Yeah.
But are they? No, they're not in alphabetical. Well, no.
Maybe
they're in alphabetical order by last name. That's what it looks like. They're in alphabetical order by last name, maybe. Yeah. Because it goes from like
numbers.
Backstabber to Brockenor Bakiska to Muradman Bast to Beto. So I guess they're by last name, maybe. But maybe that's why it always seemed like there was no rhyme or reason.
That was like how we got information into our cards. The way we remembered this stuff is hilarious. I think one of our biggest like
do this to me.
One of our secret weapons.
I know he's going to do it.
Were mnemonic devices. That's how I remember, like, because like I would have trouble with some things, and it's like, well, mnemonic devices is a great, like one of our somebody asked us like you need to come and be like a speaker for study habits.
One of our friends was a professor at a
and he's like,
college.
I want to bring you guys in and like coach my students on how to study, because
like, well, do they need to know a bunch of alien species?
Well, like the way that we studied, it was like flashcards, Quizlet was our go-to.
Oh yeah.
So we
flashcards have always historically for me been in this effective study strategy.
Flashcards was a big thing, but when those really wouldn't help get names and stuff, we used mnemonic devices. And one of my favorite ones is the Dare fan.
Oh, I didn't think okay. That's not where I thought you were.
Yeah, the Dare fan, because I was like, God, I for some reason Dare fan wouldn't stick in my head, and you're like, oh man. What was it? It was something like,
well, because
Zori Bliss is she's so hot. I gotta cool down, and she's from Kajimi, Dare fan.
God, it sounds so fucking stupid.
So stupid, but it helped so much.
The Dare fan was the Zyson class Star Destroyer that was used to destroy Kajimi in The Rise of Skywalker. When I loved her voice, the fire. Her voice was so low and good.
She's so brown. Yeah.
But that was called the Dare fan, and you were like, I can't think of how to remember this. And I think I said something about like, oh, let's use to destroy Kajimi. I know that Zori Bliss is from there, and like she's really hot. Oh, so hot. How do I cool down? Well, they're a fan. Stupid fucking shit like that.
Yeah, and it's not like it would never get into my head, but I think the pneumonic devices helped get stuff into my head faster. Because there's times when we're like, we need to cram as much as I can because my match is like in 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah, how can I get myself to this answer? What can I remember? Mm-hmm. Like I mentioned before, I thought that the first Star Destroyer to be disabled at the Battle of Hoth by the ion thing.
The ion cannon, yeah.
I always thought that would be a great question to ask. And it wasn't like I had to have a mnemonic device to remember it. It just... if I thought of something or if I was doing something in the moment that I was studying it, my brain would link it to that thing that I was doing or that thing that I was thinking of. So like the Tyrant, luckily, I must have been studying this around the time that Ty debuted. And so Ty the Tyrant Lieberman, it just kind of stuck in my brain, even though
Ty has nothing to do with it.
Why would I think of Ty Lieberman for The Empire Strikes Back? Yeah. There's no reason to think of him and associate him with episode 5. But for some reason, we must have seen something with him in it when I had looked at that card. And so anytime I saw that card, I was like, Ty Lieberman, Tyrant.
Yeah.
So like, as long as I was doing something, like a lot of times I would watch movies or have like, we have a treadmill. And I would either watch, because we also have a TV on the wall. So I'd either watch movies while I was running or walking on the treadmill, or I'd have my phone on it and I'd be doing Quizlet while I was running or walking. Stupid. Unhealthy? Probably. But also I was running. So I was kind of offsetting the unhealthy with healthy, you know? But I feel like that was also a good thing because like if you're doing something novel while you're studying, your brain might think of what you were doing in the moment that you first started trying to study that card.
Yeah.
So it kind of like made that connection. I'm trying to think of like other things like Tyrant, Ty Lieberman.
God, there's so much.
There was also one thing that I used once or twice that really helped me learn something really fast was I remember, doesn't matter where I was, but I remember sitting one day and I was like, you know what? I kind of want to memorize the 4 members of the Shad Kaba band. Oh, yeah. And the Shad Kaba band is, of course, the band that plays in Maz Kanata's castle. Mooney. Like that band in episode 7. Yeah. And because when I had to go to multiple choice on the home world of Gabdor, that made me upset. Even though I got it right. Because like in that moment, I knew that character's species was Gabdoran. But I didn't want to go, let me take a chance and think it's Gabdor or Gabdora, you know, because it could be related, but it could be like slight variations. So
yeah, they do it all the time for species.
I was just pissed that I had to go to multiple choice. So once that happened, that I started deep diving into Maz Kanata's castle. So one day I was like, I really want to learn the 4 members of the Shad Kaba band. And so I had all their names on a screen in front of me. And I was just reading them over and over and over again. Reading all 4 names. And then I would read them and then really quickly read all 4 of them and then look off into the distance or close my eyes.
And repeat them.
And try to repeat them without looking at the screen. Because I had just said them. So I'd try to say them again and I'd probably get one of them. And then I'd do it again. I'd read them a couple times. And then I'd try to look away real quick and say them without looking at them again. And then eventually, all 4 of them stuck in my head. So I don't know if that's any kind of like established method, but that was something I tried to do.
Yeah, there were several study methods that I've looked up before that I was like, yeah, we need to implore these because I remember studying the time of day you study actually affects how you remember them. So if you know, I remember looking up at some point in the season, like I know my match is going to be at like 5 p.m. our time.
Yeah,
I'm not going to look at my note cards at 3 a.m. or like 7 a.m. when I first wake up because
it's like a muscle.
It's like a muscle. My head isn't going to be in that space at that time. I don't want my head to be in that space at that time of day. So I started to really heavily study around 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
After I get off of work or something, or after whatever, and that's when my heavy studying would come. Based on my brain would be in shape and match mode at 5 p.m. So that stuff like that. I remember we got so ridiculous as to what year was it when we did the oils on my feet to help me relax? Was that?
I cannot believe you brought that up.
This is how ridiculous we were. Like because stress was like a really big thing. It's like I would get worried, and I think it was the season 6, 7.
No, 8.
No, 7. Because it was when I was on the exchange that we put oil on my feet an hour before my match to help me relax. Well, because that's how ridiculous we were.
So annoying.
Why?
One of my coworkers, no longer my coworker anymore, but whatever. Yeah. She's like super into like essential oils and astrology and all that kind of stuff, which I'm not personally. I wish I knew more about that stuff, but it does intrigue me to no end. I think it's very interesting when people are like, "Oh, you're a triple moon Gemini." Like, I don't what the fuck does that mean? But I think it's interesting. But I remember one time she told me like the feet are
the gateway to like
not the gateway, but like it's a point on your body where things are like really rapidly absorbed. Yeah. And I guess that's why people like to put Vicks Vapo Rub on their feet when they have to cough or have a cold or whatever. And so she had like this essential oil blend that was like for de-stressing and relaxing the mind and blah 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 and focusing and so every once in a while I'd rub those on your feet and be like, calm down.
Gotta win, baby. Bring that belt home to mommy.
I can't believe you. What are some other things?
Oh, I did want to talk about management because I think management really didn't come into play until the fashion race was a thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, managers were real casual up until then.
Yeah, because we both have the experience of being managed by 2 different managers. Mm-hmm. So, and I think like you can say like, oh, managers really don't do much for you.
I'm sure for some people they didn't, and for some people they did.
In some cases, there's only so much Coy could have done for me for studying Star Wars. It's like he can be like, hey, you still studying? You still good?
Yeah.
Yep. And like planking was a thing that I was like, what's planking? And somebody actually did guess it. It's like it's just something to make sure that I'm in the moment. It's like make sure you marinate on a question as long as possible.
That doesn't explain it at all.
Yeah.
I think the philosophy behind planking was because at one point, because we all know if you follow Coy on any social media platform, you know that Coy is very much into fitness.
Yeah.
And bro's got gains. He's been doing great.
Oh yeah.
But like I think at one point we were talking about working out, and I think because I don't remember exactly, but like we were talking about working out, and we were talking about using your whole time, not rushing to a question, because I think that was something that you might have struggled with at first, that you just kind of said things without really thinking them through. And Coy was like, no, I want you have 15 seconds. It's much more impressive to get a question right at all than to say something fast. Although there are a lot of fans that are really impressed with how quickly somebody answers. It's like, I'm more impressed by somebody that just gets the answer right as opposed to getting it fast.
Yeah.
You know, unless it's a speed round.
Yeah, that's only when speed counts.
As long as you get it right, who cares who got it right first if it's not a speed round?
Yeah.
So Coy was trying to like really get that into your mind, and he was like, you know how, well, no, because he wanted you to take your time, but you're like, well, 15 seconds really isn't a lot, and he's like, no, it actually kind of is. It's like think about when you're working out and you're planking, and everybody knows what planking is, right? When you're
your elbows, in the push-up position,
push-up position or on your elbows, and it's like an ab exercise. I'd be shocked if you didn't know what a plank was. But like when you're doing a plank, it kind of like feels like I know because there's this one YouTube ab exercise I do that I love. It's great. It's only 10 minutes, but it still kick your ass.
No, yeah.
And there's a plank part of it where you have to do a 60-second plank, and I'll be sitting there, and I'll be like, surely we're almost done. Surely it's been like 45 seconds. And I look up at the screen because they have like a timer, and it's like 10 seconds has passed. I'm like, oh my God. Like, why? I feel like I've been here for already at least 40 seconds. And I think Coy was trying to get that point across to you. Like planking feels like, what's a good way to put it?
You always have more time than you think you do.
Yes.
I think that's what we wanted to get in my head.
Exactly. You're thinking that you don't have a lot of time, but you do. Like there is still plenty of time, even though in the moment you're like, oh my God, I have no more time left. You probably do. And they're all the time going to give you the countdown. So I think that was his way of saying, you think you're running out of time, but there's still plenty of time left. lean into the fact that you have enough time. And so when you guys were talking about that one day, it just became planking. And that would be his way of in between rounds being like, take your time. Yeah. You have time. Use it.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to be impressed with how many JTEs you have left.
Yeah. And that was the thing about the digital age is like management was out broadcast to everybody. And that's why code words came into effect. And that's what planking was. And the thing that I loved about Koi was he was able to communicate with me cryptically, but in a way that I would understand and get it in the moment.
Yeah.
So, and I think that the match with Laura Kelly was for the title. Our second go around was really when that showed, because like he would say something and it sounded like gibberish to most people, but then I knew what he was saying. I was like, okay, yeah, got it. So like people think management style really doesn't matter for movie trivia. But in the case of the Schmoedown, it really helped me.
Yeah.
Because I remember, because Gucci, I love Gucci to death.
Love him.
He's such a cool guy and like believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. And like we would go over game plans before the match.
Yeah.
But mid-match, it really wasn't any game changing.
Yeah.
Koi was brilliant about we did game plan, but then recognized certain things that I would need in the moment that I didn't realize that I was doing. And it's like, hey, remember this. You're doing this, but you need to remember this. And it's like, oh yeah, shit. I totally forgot about that. And I think that was a big change for me and why. Well, and at the end of season 8, there was a discussion like, hey, do you want to move somewhere else? Christian's like, do you want to play for another team or do you want to move somewhere else? I'm like, I will not play for anybody else but Koi Chandra.
Yeah.
That man has helped me so much in push. Because like before I went to the Mercs, I was like right there. I was always right there. And Koi gave me that little bit of oomph and relaxing me then to where I needed to finally get over the hump. And you see that with many players.
Yeah.
So I don't know what your experience is like with management styles, because you're I mean,
well, what sucks for me is that I've had 2 managers, but I literally never got to be managed by Kaiser.
Yeah,
that's what sucks.
I mean, all your management was pre-game. And
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, because like in game, because all the Star Wars matches were behind a fucking paywall and there were no managers involved, I never got to work with him. And then, of course, the weekend that Spectacular is, he was tied up with work. What are you going to do? Life happens. He tried to get off, but he couldn't get off in time. It happens. And I was incredibly happy to have Kevin there.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was what better... I don't even want to use the word substitute because it feels like shitty. Yeah. But like, what better stand-in manager could you have asked for on the dungeon, you know? Like if for Kaiser, what better standing can you have than Kevin? Yeah. You know, it just sucks that I never actually got to play with Kaiser, you know, so I can't even really speak to his management style because, you know, we had some study sessions, but like in game, I never really got to do that with him. Yeah. Which it sucks. But I'm so glad I got to work with him in any capacity. But like Sam, what I liked about Sam, he never really he never really did that kind of thing. The thing that I like about Sam, and I don't even know if he realized he did this for me, was that I'm a really anxious person. If you haven't pieced that together. Yeah. I'm very anxious. I'm probably undiagnosed generalized anxiety disorder kind of thing. And I can get very like before every single match, maybe a little bit less our match because it was us. Yeah. But like before every single other match, regardless of who it was, regardless of the stakes, I felt like I wanted to vomit everywhere the entire day leading up to it. Days leading up to it, I'd still be thinking about it. But the day of, I'm like, I want to fucking throw up everywhere the whole day. Like didn't eat. Yeah. Just a knot in my stomach all day. Could barely eat. Had to force myself to eat because that's important or whatever. But I feel like Sam, kind of like you, balanced me out. In life, you balance me out because I'm very nervous and you're very like...
See what happens.
Oh, well, you know? Yeah. And in matches, even if it didn't look like I was nervous, oh, buddy boy, I was nervous. Like that first match against John Hoey, my first match, like I think I've said this many times before, I don't think you can tell watching it, but when I first bring up my board, fucking shaking. Like, I'm surprised that it didn't look like my answer was written like during an active earthquake because I was, oh my God, I don't know, Nemoidian. Like, I don't remember what the first question was.
Yeah.
But yeah, nervous before every single match, regardless of the stakes, regardless of the competitor. And Sam was just this calming, soothing presence where between rounds, he'd just be like, how you doing? How you feeling? You're doing great. I'm so proud of you. And I don't know if he knew that that's what I needed or what, but he was just able to, if I'm like way up here, he was able to bring me back down here and be like, you're doing great. You're doing fine. Just do it. And I'm like, word.
Word.
But like, but yeah, if I didn't seem nervous, it was all acting because boy, was I every fucking time. But yeah, it just sucks that I never got to like have in-game experience with Kaiser.
I do like that the connection with Sam, we got to get closer to Rachel.
Oh, yeah.
That was great.
I can't even, like you said before, I can't even imagine the fact that I can like just shoot her a message now and just be like, hey girl, hey, like see her in person. It's like big old hugs. Love you. Love you. Never in my life did I think I'd be, first of all, even talking to Rachel Cushing or Sam Levine.
Yeah.
And like, it's just cool that that connection is made. That's one of the most special things about the Schmoedown is the connections of people. Yeah. People have made lifelong friends that they met through the Schmoedown. People have met their husbands and wives and significant others through the Schmoedown. Like, I don't know if there are any Schmoedown babies out there yet, but sure that might even be a thing down the road. Who knows? Like, wouldn't that be wild? I mean, Schmo babies.
Schmo baby. Make him the real name, Schmo.
No.
7.
7. Soda. It's a good name. What are you referencing when you say 7?
Seinfeld.
Okay. Because I think the other name George was talking about was Soda. I think that's a beautiful name.
Fuquan, what's up?
Scrubs reference.
Yes.
What are some other things?
No, I think the connections that we've made to the Schmoedown is probably the best thing that has come out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like we have several Schmoedown people here in Orlando that we keep in touch with, and like I remember like when we were out there at Spectacular afterwards, and Bibiani was out there. He's like, "Stay in touch.
He's a good dude.
I don't want to lose you guys."
Yeah,
it's like
I love that man.
Yeah, Bibiani was another one of those where like out of nowhere, like went above and beyond to make sure.
Yeah,
I was prepared.
I don't think we could do this type of discussion without talking about
Bibiani was so pivotal.
Yeah,
like there were so many questions that he had drummed up that eventually got asked, not in my match, but in other matches. Like, and I would immediately like we would talk to him for the next match, and it's like, "Do you see that?"
Yeah,
he's like, "Yeah," and like ever he was on one show, and he's like one of the prides of being in the Schmoedown was that he got to prep me for matches. I was like,
he was
like when I say above and beyond, email.
He made us. How many mock matches did we play against each other written by him?
We played at least
3?
5.
What? Really?
At least 5.
And when he made us mock matches,
they were tough.
I think every single time they were 5 rounders.
Yeah, they were
because we were getting ready for title matches.
Well, yeah.
Maybe there was 1 or 2.
There was 1 or 2 3-rounders, but most of them were 5-rounders. So,
but the fact that he was able to ask some questions that made both of us go, "What?"
Yeah.
Like he wrote some questions about like Oscars or things that were like clearly it was written by a singles competitor.
Yeah.
That made me go, I have no idea.
It was Bibiani the reason why we pivoted so hard into actors, because he's like he would ask this question like Oscars questions and some weapons and vehicles. He's like, they're coming.
Yeah, I really think you need to focus on weapons.
You really need to focus on these because they're coming. And I'm like,
yeah.
That mindset crept in. I'm like,
we have to anticipate.
We have to anticipate questions, because for the longest time, I always thought that like all the competitors were so knowledgeable about like in-universe stuff, like characters, weapons, and all that stuff. But where a lot of people struggled was real-world situations, like actors and things like that. It's like they haven't leaned into actors very, very much. It's coming.
There's no way it's not coming.
There's no way it's not coming.
And boy, did it happen.
And
season 8.
every single other division, actors and directors and writers were like just bare minimum things for the other divisions. And they're never really asked about in Star Wars. I'm like, this is coming and it's coming fast.
Yeah.
We need to be ahead of the game on this.
They had some brutal actor questions in season 8.
Oh, yeah. And it was because of Bibiani, that mindset of you need to anticipate was why I went we need to start looking at actors more because it's coming. It's definitely coming. So like, thank God for Bibiani's. Yeah, it definitely. His
not for Lieutenant Frob, but it helped.
No, but it was like Bibiani's mindset of anticipating and think. I think another thing that really helps, especially you in an aspect, it was don't just study information, understand the movie, understand why the characters do this, understand why the story goes this way, and it's one of those mindsets that I don't think a lot of Star Wars competitors or like. We would look at it. It's like, yeah, we know all this information.
Yeah,
but
don't just memorize facts. Understand how the puzzle pieces fit together.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it actually pivoted and
it helped me.
It helped you a lot in some ways. Like things would click. It's like, oh yeah, that's why.
I'd be like, why did Padme do this in the Senate? Mm-hmm. And then you'd explain it to me. I'd be like, oh, that makes so much more sense. Because the first couple of times I watched The Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones earlier on when we first started preparing for the Schmoedown and I first started watching these movies, like paying attention, I was like, I'm just watching this with my eyes. Yeah. Not my brain. Like I'm just seeing it and I'm just trying to pick out things here and there. But it really does help to understand like
the story. Yeah.
Like not just know the parts, understand how those parts work together and make the story advance. So yeah, that was one thing that I know I started working on was not just memorization, straight memorization of things, understanding how things fit together, and it did make certain things easier to remember. Yeah. So yeah.
So, like the stuff like that like really helped that mindset.
I think the best question that Bibiani ever asked us was, "What is the in the Last Jedi? What is the canon name of the plant that Luke uses to tickle Rey's hand when she was learning about the Force?"
It's a
and
reed.
we both looked at each other like,
"What?
What kind of plant?
It's a leaf.
It's a fucking reed." And it has a canon page, R-E-E-D, reed. And the look of glee on his face when he said it's a reed. We were like, you motherfucker.
He always had like zingers like that for every single mock match that like he would deem as so ridiculous. Like I think he would deem those as like why questions. Like there's, you obviously guys would probably know this, but they ended up being so ridiculous. That's like, what?
Well, I think one of my other favorite ones that he did ask that it was after we had finished the mock match and it was a leftover question because he would always do that after the match. He would ask us all the questions we didn't get to answer.
Yeah, just to make sure
so they didn't go to waste, you know? And so one of the questions he was like, this is so stupid. And I'd fall out of my chair if either of you guys know this. But because I think at that time that he asked us, it was a very recent update and revision to canon. You know, in Empire, when Han and Leia and they fly into the space slug, the Exogorth. He asked us what the name of the Exogorth was, and we both like laughed real hard
because we just added it.
We just found that, and I think I found it by looking at the character list over and over again on the Wikipedia page.
It was very recent because excuse me. A certain point of view just came out for Empire. Yeah. And it was like, ooh, that changes everything.
We just both laughed and like on cue both said, Sayo. And he goes, what? Why? Why is it in your head?
Because Star Wars. Isn't Star Wars fun?
Yeah. Yeah. Is there a question? No. I was going to say, is there a question that's like, because I feel like there's multiple answers we can give to like, is there a question that you were like, this is never going to come up? I think I have an example, even though I'm sure we have multiple examples. Yeah. I think one of the things that I looked up one time or found one time, that's how I found Life Zone. Yeah. Which it also annoys me that people love to talk about, the hardest questions.
Life Zone's in there.
Parking violation question, hardest question. That was something that made me laugh. On the subreddit, when I did peruse it from time to time, somebody, and I think it was somewhat recently, and I think it caught my eye because your name was in the title, which is a dangerous thing to do, is look at anything containing one of our names. Yeah. But like, in that match with Andrew Dimalanta and Ace, what was that like impossible question? I think I heard that no Star Wars competitor, and nobody else knew this answer. It's like, my dude.
Everybody knew it.
Props to Ace for knowing it, absolutely, because it was a very fleeting line. It was actually almost like a backgroundish line. It was almost kind of softer than like any sound that was happening in the foreground. but it was still said verbally out loud and subtitled in the movie. Yeah. And I can absolutely 100%, I doubt that person's watching this, but I can 100% guarantee you that he was not the only Star Wars competitor.
No, I'm pretty sure everybody knew that answer.
I don't know if I'd say every single person because it is just a mishmash of letters and numbers, but I can absolutely assure you he was not the only competitor that knew that answer. But whenever people talk about like,
hardest
questions. My God, hard questions.
Lifezone has
I never got any credit for Lifezone.
Lifezone has because you're the only person that knew that.
Quite literally, everybody we've talked to was like, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So, and I never got any fucking recognition for that. But no,
I think that is, if you're talking about hardest questions ever asked in the Star Wars division, Lifezone is probably number one.
But I think that it never came up because number one, I got it right.
Yeah.
In round one.
Yeah.
Had it been like a 5-pointer or something, it would have been flashier. But it was a round one question. And also Lifezone, just not a sexy answer.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound cool.
Yeah.
And that was another thing that blew a door open for us because we usually
that's right.
We usually looked at things that sounded cool.
Yeah, like sexy answers. Yeah.
Sexy answers. But then Lifezone happened. And it was like, that doesn't sound interesting at all.
Yeah.
Why would they ask about that? And then another question that I got one time that I think I talked about when we covered the match. There was one time that I was looking at the weapons section of the movies and I was looking at all the entries underneath it as I did. And I found quarterstaff for the name of Rey's weapon. And I distinctly remember one day saying to you, what do you think about this? And you're like, no, that's lame.
That's lame. It's a dumb answer.
And then bam, it comes up because it's not sexy.
Yeah.
But
we called it the sexy rule or something.
That was something that we stopped looking for things that sounded flashy and started looking for even just mundane sounding things because those were coming up too.
Forks are canon.
Forks are canon too. Learned that. I feel like we were talking about something before I went off on that hard question tangent.
Things that we think we'll never get asked.
Oh, yeah. Okay. But yeah, Lifezone, I came upon that because of searching and all those appearances things underneath every movie. And I think I just saw that one day and I'm like, yeah, that sounds lame. And I didn't even bring it up to you because I thought it sounded lame. But luckily it stuck in my brain.
Yeah.
Came in
your match.
Came up in my match, luckily. But I think one of the dumbest things that I ever came across that I put in my cards or our cards was like, I don't remember what the actual definition of it was, but it was like the name of the law about the trade embargo in the Phantom Menace. Was it the law that the Trade Federation used?
This is
or that
it was the law that was put in place that that trade dispute was.
Hold on. Let me look it up. There it is. Prop 31814D.
Yeah.
The infamous Galactic Republic resolution that enabled taxation of the free trade zones. I don't know. I think I came upon that in the list of things at the end of the movie entry, but I was like, that's so stupid.
Yeah. I think one of the more ridiculous things that took a long time to get in my head was Poe's prisoner number. That's like, why would they ever ask about it?
But that's an easy number to remember because when he's talking about The Force Awakens, when Poe, at the very beginning of the movie, when Kylo Ren takes Poe and takes him away and he has him in like that room with the torture droid. But that number is the easiest number to remember out of the things we had on that scene.
Yeah.
His prisoner number was 64949.
64949 was
because
much
it had
easier
like easy to remember numbers.
Oh.
That was his prisoner number.
Oh, no, his cell number. Sorry. The cell number was the hard one to remember.
8910542.
Yeah. That one's probably the most ridiculous thing.
And why that's still in my head, I don't know. Because it sounds like a phone number.
Yeah.
And I tried to memorize it using the same kind of rhythm that you would use to say a number. 8910542.
Yeah,
sounds like something in like a TV ad.
And another thing that we use, especially like the writers love numbers, especially for the Star Wars division.
Really? I don't think they loved them as much as you say they do.
I think they do. The number, anytime a number is said, a number of these many droids or people or whatever. I
see what you're saying.
They love numbers. And I think something that we used to do, I think you did this more than I did. You'd make string of numbers, your password to get into your phone or to your computer. That's another thing that we did.
Yeah, at one point.
You want to get into your computer, right? What's post cell number?
Yeah, there was, I forget. Well, I'm not going to tell you what app it was for.
Yeah.
But like, I one of my like apps or something on my computer, I made the password to it. Well, maybe I shouldn't say. But like, we would use certain things from the movies, and I would make some stupid thing that I wanted to get into my head a password to a certain account, And it wouldn't be like always straight, you know, from the movie. I would kind of like change it up. But like, yeah, I would do that every so often too. I've since changed them all because I don't need them to be that way anymore. But like, yeah, that was one thing I did at one point, that I would make the unlock code to get into my computer some random number from Star Wars, you know? Yeah. Yeah. And like I think we mentioned before, we had basically a wallpaper in our kitchen with different
like the crawls, the
Oscars, nominations, wins of Oscars for every
cross
movie.
Divisional, like how many times has this been nominated for, like all that stuff. Yeah. So
and like all the cantina scenes, because like the digital season 8 was another that was just the season of pivots, because that was when they really started asking ridiculous questions. Like when I think it was my match with Alex, when they asked about Elan Mac's Homeworld, and both of us were like, "Fuck are you talking about?" I know who you're talking about, and I knew what his species was, but I never. And the annoying thing is that his species sounds nothing like his homeworld. And so after that, you bet your ass I memorized every pod racer and their species and their homeworld. And if they had an actor, who voiced them. Yeah. And in a lot of cases, what kind of pod racer they flew. Yeah. And did it ever benefit me again? No, because they never asked like any other pod racer question ever after that again. It was just this one fucking zinger. Hey, Homeworld is one pod racer that doesn't even really appear in the movie, and then never again. So
that's what drove me nuts about the Star Wars division, is like, oh yeah, we're gonna run out of questions. It's like, no, there's so much that hasn't been.
We need to retire the division. We're gonna run out of questions.
Which they were gonna do. They said after this season, if the Schmoedown was gonna keep going, they were gonna retire the Star Wars division.
Which at this point would have made more sense to me, because it wasn't. I feel like when you joined, it was like a yearly thing, that at some point, it's that time of year again where somebody's calling for their retirement of the Star Wars division. Yeah, I feel like the argument was always, we're gonna run out of questions, but I want a Marvel League. But I feel like if it were to be retired now, say the Schmoedown was still going on, it would have made more sense with the argument of, well, it's just getting stupid now. Yeah. And it's getting so
very specific.
It's getting so very specific that the competitors are, it's too much to prepare for it and function at a high level. Because if you want to function at a high level, you have to sacrifice a lot of your time and mental health. Yeah. So at that point, I would have been like, it's time. Yeah.
If there was a year for it to end the division, I think this year was the perfect year to do it. And not that the belt's here now, but
I don't know. I forget if I've ever said it on this show, but when everybody kept kicking around the idea of adding TV shows, I was always like, fuck no.
Deuces.
The moment you introduce TV shows, that moment I'm texting Christian and going, I'm done. Yeah. I'm done.
I probably would have done the same thing.
First of all, it's already a full-time job to study like this for 12 movies. Now we're going to add how many seasons of Clone Wars and how many seasons of all the other shows that are out there. And now we're getting Andor, and we had Kenobi, and we're going to be getting whatever else is coming out, and more Mando. Yeah. So it was almost kind of like, it's too much. In addition to how we've been studying for the 12 movies, but it was also kind of like, okay, so we're just becoming Dragon Con 2.0. Yeah. So you're just handing the division over to whoever plays Dragon Con.
Like Thomas was calling for. It's like, well, yeah, of course you're calling for it.
No shit.
You're already prepared for it.
Yeah. You've already, all of you been actively studying these things. Yeah. No shit. No, I don't want TV added, because that's just, it would have been so much. Yeah. I can't imagine, because the amount of, from Clone Wars, just the amount of different clones you would need to know alone. And then could you imagine who directed this episode of Mando? Who directed this episode of The Clone Wars? Yeah. And there's like 5 bajillion, like, I just made a new number.
Fazillion?
20.3 fazillion episodes.
That's another question I was surprised they never asked.
And also surprised they never asked the, coordinates of the Emperor's Wayfinder. Well, there was a way that I remembered that one too.
I don't know. We can go on and on and on about questions and study.
Well, because it was Delta 36 transient 9 Delta 36, transient 936, bearing 32, and a moon in the indoor system from the southern shore. Yeah. I think we remembered the DTB for, the numbers. Yeah. Because we were like, Drew takes belt.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
That was our goal that year, was that you get the belt. So Delta 36, transient 936, bearing 32, the DTB, we at least remembered by calling it Drew takes belt.
Yeah.
And then the numbers just kind of came along with it. Mm-hmm. So we always had like stupid little ways of remembering things.
Yeah.
Like Nivlek is a pilot in the Battle of Starkiller Base in episode 7. Mm. He is like, what does he say? Like, copy black leader.
Yeah.
And he sounded kind of Irish or whatever. And the actor's name was James McArdle. Sounds like a good old fashioned Irishy name, McArdle.
Plays Tim in Andor.
So that was it was like stupid little things like that to try to remember and like get to an answer. Yeah. Not necessarily faster, but just get there, at all.
Yeah.
Gosh, there are there's many things that we could.
Yeah. But before we turn on about this, I think we should move on because we're over an hour now. But
oh Jesus!
Before we get out of here, like this has been such a magical journey that we've been on for the past 4 years.
Yeah.
It wasn't always pretty.
No.
It wasn't always fun.
No.
We didn't get along with not get along, but like there was points of contention along the way. Like the Tydirium situation and
don't talk to me about Tydirium.
There are definitely moments like that, but overall this is I'm glad we were a part of the Schmoedown.
Absolutely.
There's so many things that we've gotten out of the Schmoedown.
There are some things that make me clench my fist and get unreasonably mad.
Yeah.
But yeah, by and large, this was an incredibly positive experience. Mm-hmm. And it was.
Yeah. And I think
it was wonderful.
One of the best things that came out of the Schmoedown was the show.
Yeah.
I'm so incredibly thankful for you guys, for the people that continually tune into the show.
Still blows my mind.
Week out. Like when we were at Celebration, people would come like, the Dimalantas. I listen to the show every week. I'm like, no,
why?
No way. Why do you listen to two idiots talk about a movie trivia show? That's crazy. But like, it would always.
Like I actually said that to somebody.
Yeah.
We're like, I watch your show. Why?
Yeah, but it would always be like when we first started, I was like, yay, we had like 5 listeners.
Yeah. It's like, wow, somebody listened to it.
Yeah. Then the numbers would start going up, and I'm like, we have people in like Ireland listening to us.
It's wild.
Somebody in like New Zealand was listening to us. I'm like,
it's crazy.
Why are people across the planet listening to our show?
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was just like if we didn't come competitors, and this show wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
Like, and it's just like it's incredible to have people say they like listen to your show and watch you and like, I'm a fan of you. It's like, you're a fan of me?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Always my reaction.
So thank you to everybody for tuning into the show every week. And even when we didn't get the episodes up on time.
Yeah, shit happens.
Shit happens.
Sometimes.
This was supposed to go up yesterday, but like stuff happens from time to time. But thank you so much for everybody for tuning into the show and leaving likes and comments and like sharing our love for this dumb trivia show that we were able to be a part of for as long as we were.
Yeah.
So I'm surprised we lasted 4 years. So
now that it's over,
yeah,
I think about what if it was still going on. No, not even that. Mm-hmm. I think about what we would have been doing this year if things happened differently and you were facing somebody else besides me. And the thought of how we would have been injuring ourselves and beating ourselves up to prepare, it makes me shudder.
Yeah.
So, it was something I'm really excited that we have been a part of, but it's also something that I'm like,
I'm kind of thankful we're not doing it anymore.
It's kind of like Kevin Smith just shared this thing about his wife's reaction when him and his wife dropped their daughter off to daycare for the first time. Mm-hmm. And it was like Thanos after he had done the snap and he like sat down, he was like,
oh yeah, you watch the sunset.
Yeah. I feel like that.
Or the sunrise.
Yeah. Who the fuck cares? But like, that's how I feel. Like sitting here just like,
it's over.
It's over.
I feel like Frodo at the end of Return of the
And I don't mean it like shitty, like, oh, thank God it's over.
Yeah, no, but it's like,
in a way, it's like, I'm glad I don't have to study anymore and I don't do that to myself anymore.
Yeah.
But it's also kind of like, it's bittersweet.
Yeah. Like yeah, because when they said it was ending and like we played our last match, it's like, what do I do with myself?
What do I do with my hands?
I have no idea what to do with my time now.
I had to like retrain myself.
Not to have to,
for so long.
Yeah.
It was like, if I sat down to watch anything that wasn't, I would go to put like one of my shows on that I like to watch and I'd go, no, I need to be watching Star Wars. And I would change it to Star Wars. There was a year, I think it was season 8 last year when I started competing too. I don't think I consumed, that's probably wrong. There's probably 1 or 2 Star Wars shows.
Yeah. But still Star Wars adjacent.
For a good portion of the year, good portion of the year, I didn't consume anything other than those 12 movies.
Yeah.
Not the entire 365, but a really big portion of the year.
Yeah.
Well, the only good part about that was the YouTube shows I like to watch and other shows I like to watch. I had a lot of things to come back to. Got piled up. But yeah, it's really bittersweet. It sucks. And also it sucks because like us being all the way over here on this coast and so many people involved in it are over on the other coast that it's kind of like, I don't really, I mean, it gave us an excuse
to get together
from across the nation. So, you know.
Yeah, I'm sure that won't go away. It'll be less.
Yeah.
But I really hope it doesn't because, like I said, one of the biggest things that come out of the Schmoedown was friends.
Yeah.
It was such a pleasure to just be involved and to say hi and to call these people friends is like it's special.
But that's also one of the good things, I guess, that came out of and I say that very loosely, a good thing to come out of the pandemic, but like it's so much easier to keep in touch with people now because like, I mean, the technology was always there.
Yeah, but we like didn't use it as much.
It's such a natural thought now to be like, you want to jump on a Zoom, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just, at least it's so much more natural and easy to keep up with people even from afar. So, you know, I guess we got that going for us.
Yeah. But again, thank you for joining us on this final episode of Beyond the Schmoedown. This channel will just shift now.
Yeah.
It's going to be the same show. These two idiots talking about whatever.
If you like listening to us do things, say things.
The only thing that'll be different, we won't be talking about the Schmoedown. The logo will be different. We already got the logo art from Brian Ward. Thanks for being so quick with that, man. That was
He's
great.
Not watching this. But like, I mean, the Schmoedown will probably come up at some point.
Yeah.
So, you know.
But for the most part, this show will become Radcast.
Yeah. If you just want to hear us talk about random shit now, we'll still be here and we'll still do that.
Yeah. So it'll just be tangents.
Yeah.
All tangents all day long.
That's why I didn't feel bad about going off on tangents these last couple months because I'm like, gotta warm people up. If they're going to stick around, this is what you're going to be getting. So, you know, as long as people are listening, we'll do it.
Yes. So with that, we will go ahead and end the final episode of Beyond the Schmoedown with that. Yeah. Star Wars competitor Nicki Dimalanta, where can they find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at Dimmy, DIMMMYYY.
As for me, you can follow me on TikTok and Instagram at Rogue Leader Drew. And if you're listening to this on audio form, please follow the feed and rate us. And if you're watching on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe, click the bell icon in the lower right-hand corner, see when we do things on the YouTube. So be sure to tune in next week for the rebranded Radcast with Rogue and Dimmy. Oh, boy. So thank you for joining us on this episode, the final episode of Beyond the Schmoedown. And we'll see you guys next time.